This is CUNY TV, the City University of New York.
Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge & Company. Over 1.5 million New Yorkers can't afford enough food. The bureaucratic term for that is food insecurity. We call it hunger, and it's unconscionable that it happens here. Joel Berg spends his life fighting it. He's the executive director of the New York City Coalition Against Hunger and my guest today. Hello.
Hello.
How are you? Well, you have a different, you have a second term under your title, Moving
Society Beyond the Soup Kitchen, because our belief is while we need soup kitchens and food pantries as an interim step, the long-term solution to hunger is not more charity and more volunteerism, it's more social justice, it's higher wages and a serious safety net.
So how are we going to get into that? Well, let's go first. Tell me about the coalition. How many, you represent all the different food pantries?
Yes.
And
we're an umbrella group.
kitchens.
We're an umbrella group for them. We don't provide food by and large. The Food Bank for New York City and City Harvest do that, with one exception. Yes. We have a community-supported agriculture project where we are bringing fresh produce from regional farmers into low-income neighborhoods. But by and large, we don't do direct food distribution. We help people get food stamps benefits. We help try to ensure that more schools provide school breakfasts. We conduct a lot of outreach on summer meals for kids. We place volunteers in pantries and kitchens, but hopefully not just to do short-term food service, but to really build their capacity. We have an AmeriCorps and Vista National Service program to develop leadership, but we're probably best known for our policy advocacy, research, and communications work, pressuring elected officials to do what's needed to actually start reversing this problem as opposed to marginally ameliorating it.
And so you work in the city and the state?
We work in the city, but we do work at the state level because what the governor does or does not do on these issues is critical. Governor Cuomo has been very helpful on the hunger issue specifically, and we are starting to do more at the national level as well. We do have a VISTA program in 17 states, but the vast majority of hunger funding is decided by Washington. So the bottom line is if you want to be effective on even the New York City level, you can't ignore what's going on for good or ill, often for ill in D.C.
And now there's a national coalition also?
There is not, although that's something we're looking into.
Yeah, because there must be people like you or on a smaller basis. I would think we have...
There are food banks around the country that provide food, but anti-hunger advocacy groups, there aren't that many of. Maybe half or 2/3 of the states in the union have a statewide group. Many localities don't even have one. Detroit used to have one a few years ago. It was a small group with 1 or 2 people. That person left, the organization is gone. So one of the things I'm talking with colleagues about is how can we build a more robust movement where there really is a presence in all 50 states.
I'd like to talk more about this movement, but let's just talk about New York City for a minute.
Yes.
Are we no longer fingerprinting?
As of the next few weeks, we will no longer be fingerprinting food stamps applicants. We join 49 other states in the union. Because of Mayor Bloomberg's stubbornness, we cling to this process, which didn't reduce fraud, which wasted millions of dollars, which kept food away from working families who didn't have the time to leave work, didn't have the money to lose wages, go to work to do this. And we were we were following Texas. We've been behind in more right-wing than Texas. You know, Arizona doesn't believe in immigration. They don't believe in gun control. They don't even believe in daylight savings time. Why in the world we would cling to a failed social policy with Arizona as opposed to 49 other states that don't do this is really beyond me.
Yeah. Now, where do you go in New York now for food stamps?
You can go to either a New York City Human Resources Administration food stamps office. If you're going to apply for food stamps and cash assistance, you can also go to what they call a job center, although the city will go to any length to prevent you from getting actual cash assistance. There are more and more sites where you actually can apply online through what we call the paperless office system. And to do so, you can actually submit all your documents payments through a nonprofit group, and in many cases, you no longer actually have to physically go to a government office anymore.
So who tells you about this, though? You have to be connected somehow.
Well,
right?
we do a lot of advertising. We give out a few 100,000 pieces of literature a year. We have staff doing outreach. Other great groups like the Metropolitan Council of Jewish Poverty are out there doing outreach. So there are a lot of groups doing outreach, but it's tough when the city government still sends this ridiculous message. Even if you're a working parent, somehow there's something wrong with you getting this help from government. I wish there was 1/1000th the stigma on Donald Trump getting corporate welfare from the government
Absolutely.
there is on a working family getting their measly little buck a meal.
You know, it's also changed since the welfare, we had welfare as we used to know it, didn't you, when you went to a welfare office to apply for benefits or something?
Yes. I worked for President Clinton's administration. I supported the idea of welfare reform. Most people on welfare would prefer a living wage job. And in the 90s, when there were living wage jobs available and when poverty was going down for African Americans and Latinos, welfare reform by and large was working. Even then, it was a mixed bag because some people who weren't getting jobs were sinking a little deeper into poverty. But since then, welfare reform hasn't been moving people to work. It's been moving people to soup kitchens and food pantries and homeless shelters. Tonight in New York City, more than 40,000 people are going to sleep in city homeless shelters.
That's more than we've ever had, isn't it?
Yes, more than 1.5 million people sometime this year are going to be forced to use soup kitchens and food pantries, about 1 in 5 New Yorkers. So it's not working. And people still perceive of food stamps somehow as connected with welfare. There are 2.9 million people in New York City low income enough to get Medicaid, health insurance. Yet only 1.8 million get food stamps because it's far harder to get food stamps even though people need the food, but only 300,000 people get cash welfare. Nationwide, less than 10% of even the people in poverty get cash welfare. Now, that's not the long-term answer, but when people are down and out, it's a choice between getting cash or not having the money to pay their rent. It is insane that we're spending 10 times as much money to put them in a homeless shelter as to give them a little cash to prevent them from becoming homeless.
So that's
as
what
they're
they
looking
used to
for
refer
work.
to as the safety net. It's not working. There is no safety net.
There's very little safety net except for the food stamps program. The food stamps program still is an entitlement. When Clinton signed welfare reform into law, people often forget he did veto 2 previous versions of the bill, which also would have dismantled food stamps. And as one of his prices for signing the bill, he did maintain food stamps. So here in New York City, even though there are all these barriers, food stamps participation has gone up tremendously since the start of the recession in a way that cash welfare has not. So food stamps really is the last remaining bastion of the safety net.
Yeah.
And of course, we have all this poverty, we have all this unemployment because of failed conservative policies. So what really gets me is the very conservatives who sunk our economic boat are now whining about food stamps and trying to take away the life preserver. If you didn't sink the boat, we wouldn't need the life preserver.
Tell me, you're so passionate about it. You must be so frustrated because how many years have you been doing this work?
A few decades now. I've been with the organization 11 years, and before that I served at the federal government in the Clinton administration for 8.
How did you get into this?
I got into this sort of by accident because I worked for Bill Clinton in Kansas in 1992. I was temporarily
What
sent
were you
to-
doing in Kansas?
I was his press secretary for his presidential campaign. Talk about a thankless task, although we almost won, only lost by, 4 points. Since then, I've been a nonpartisan, non-political public servant. I did work for 8 years in his administration. I was sent to USDA basically because I had some experience working in a farm state, and I was supposed to stay there temporarily, but I stayed there all 8 years because I learned that the U.S. Department of Agriculture does all these things I care about deeply.
And people don't know it.
No, it manages the National Forest Service, which has 3 times as many acres of land as the National Park Service. It protects our meat and poultry. The previous Bush administration was totally in the pocket of the cattle industry and the meat industry, and we really tried to put it on the side of consumers. USDA is sort of the rural HUD, and there's a lot of rural poverty that it works on. And of course, USDA is the main hunger fighter in America. So what was supposed to be a temporary few-week stay ended up being a 8-year learning experience there.
So
Came back to a real city.
now, when somebody applies for Medicaid, why aren't they asked at that point, to apply for food stamps?
Good question. You'd really have to ask the mayor. And
Is that state or federal? I mean, state or local?
local is the decision whether to tell someone about these other programs.
But where do you apply for Medicaid?
I believe you apply at a city
Local?
office.
At a city?
Yeah, although sometimes you can get facilitated enrollment through other healthcare providers. I think you
Right.
can also apply at many hospitals, etc. But unfortunately, many of the institutions that do the enrollment get a vested interest in enrolling people for Medicaid because you're using your benefits there, but you don't use your food benefits there. So not to be cynical about this, but since you can't actually give money to that institution through the food stamps program, there's less incentive. And the truth is the government sent the message, okay, you really need health care. But we still kind of sort of think
But
food stamps are welfare.
Don't
If
we
there
think
was a will, there was
healthy people eating healthy foods are part of?
They should, but they don't. Now, I will give a lot of credit to the Speaker of the City Council, Christine Quinn. She got the city to do a pilot project where they actually mailed Medicaid recipients and told them about food stamps.
Oh, well, that's good.
That's good, but it would even be better if the next mayor does a more concrete automatic
And if
match.
the health department would do a widespread thing?
Look,
Isn't that
if we
considered
really
public
want,
health?
look, if we really wanted people to get food stamps, it'd be no problem. Nearly 100% of the senior citizens in America eligible for Social Security get it. And yet a third of the people in America eligible for food stamps don't get it. Why? We send the message that you earn Social Security, you paid for it, it's not welfare, you shouldn't have any stigma whatsoever, get it, once you're in it forever. Yet we send the message for food stamps, oh, you don't really deserve it, it's welfare, you didn't really pay for it, we're gonna make it really, really tough. But those are false comparisons. As you know, many people get back more from Social Security than they paid in. That's why we're having a national debate over it. And many, if not most people on the food stamps program work for significant portions of their life. But the ideology dictates the policies. And the policies, for one, is Social Security is great.
You can still be working and still be on food stamps. You're just not making enough money.
You can. And
Yeah.
in fact,
And you
you
have to
can
feed
make,
a family.
depending on how many children you have, a medium-sized family, you can earn into the 20,000s a year and still get food stamps.
Yeah, in your book, one of the things that really touched me was about the school breakfasts and the fact that kids who are getting underwritten or whatever food meals stand on a separate line in some of the school cafeterias?
Yes, that's actually illegal, but does happen in some parts of
New York City?
Not in New York City. And by the way, I'll just have to plug the book. It's called All You Can Eat:
Yes,
How
we
Hungry Is
definitely will.
America. Still
It's a great
available
book.
on Amazon, used or new. Any case, but New York City is making a grievous mistake on school breakfast. 2/3 of the kids who get school lunches in New York City don't get school breakfast. A recent national report found that out of 26 big cities in the United States, New York City is in dead last place, 26th place.
Now, why is that?
It is because the city has taken a fairly ridiculous position that school breakfast increases obesity. It's absurd. There are some other issues such as restrictions on soda that we can have a serious debate over, that there is division within the public health community about.
What do they get for breakfast if you serve it in the school?
Usually you get a little muffin, maybe a piece of fruit, maybe some yogurt, a few hundred calories. We know for a fact that a quarter of the children in New York City live in homes that can't afford enough food. We know for a fact that many students are going hungry and are food insecure because they're skipping breakfast. We know for a fact that missing breakfast not only makes you hungrier, the greatest irony is it makes you more obese because you're going to overeat at lunch or eat more junk food on the way to school. I can sort of kind of understand that this mayor, unfortunately, has been pretty clueless about poverty and hunger issues. But even if you're just focused on obesity, I would hope he and his appointees would understand that serving kids a nutritious breakfast will help reduce obesity.
So do you work with the health department at that point, or do you work with the Board of the Department of Education?
We work with
everybody.
We work with both, and we've had meetings with them. They have 1.5 studies, so to speak. One brief study from Philadelphia, one brief study from New York, ridiculously small sample sizes. They don't even show that breakfast increases obesity, but they think it kind of sort of might for a few. And these studies did not even ask whether school breakfast reduced hunger. So studying whether school breakfast may sort of kind of for 1 in a million kids increase obesity without even asking whether for 1 out of every 4 kids who are hungry gets less hungry, is sort of like studying the impact of chemotherapy on a patient without discussing whether it cures cancer or not, or abates cancer, just studying whether it increases nausea or not. Studying a side effect without studying the main impact of the program. So it really is an extreme approach, and the bottom line is we're dead last. It's humiliating when we lose to Boston or Philadelphia in baseball or football, but losing to them in feeding our children should truly have us sending our head between our legs and going home.
Now tell me something. Why do you think that poverty and the question of food and hunger, why isn't that higher on the national consciousness? And why do we have, how has the country become so anti or disinterested in poverty?
Well, America always hasn't liked poor people, as opposed to Western Europe, which started welfare systems hundreds of years ago. America started debtors' prisons. And I remind my progressive friends, this is a very conservative country. Herbert Hoover got 40% of the vote in 1932. 4 out of 10 Americans thought Hoover was going to do better than Roosevelt, arguably the greatest politician of all time. So we're a very conservative country, but we've gotten certainly more conservative over the last few decades. 2 reasons. Number 1 is the conservative media has basically dominated the debate, con people into believing that government programs don't work, when in fact the Great Society was mostly a smashing success. Between 1960 and 1973, the poverty rate in America was cut in half. 16 million Americans left poverty and entered the middle class as a result of the war on poverty and economic growth spurred by government programs. But even many progressives today have falsely accepted the con job that none of this works. And 2, honestly, white liberals, the ones with money who fund many liberal politicians, are 1 or 2 or 3 generations removed from poverty themselves. And in the 1960s, because poverty was seen as a civil rights issue, if you were a good PC liberal, you were against poverty. Today, that's just not a liberal issue. You watch MSNBC, you read, the Huffington Post, with few exceptions, whatever sort of the mouthpieces of the national left are, with the exception of The Nation, which consistently covers this, you just don't even see the liberal media focused on this. And unfortunately, too many liberals, at least liberals with money, start accepting some of the right-wing myths around poor people.
But when you come back, let's go back to food.
Yes.
Do you think that people are under the impression that food stamps are really doing the job in local
I think people are clueless about the extent that food stamps help. I think Americans are clueless that the reason we don't have Somalia-type starvation in America is the success of the food stamps program. And I ultimately think they're clueless that pantries and kitchens and food banks, while they're miraculous and do vital work, they are dwarfed by even the underutilized federal safety net. Every dollar worth of food distributed by a soup kitchen, food pantry, and food bank in America is equal 1/50th of the amount of food distributed by the federal safety net. And I also think many people believe because we have obesity, there can't be hunger. Many right-minded, progressive people say, oh, well, it just looks right. They weigh too much, there can't be hunger. They don't understand that obesity and hunger are flip sides of the same malnutrition coin. That low-income people don't have the time to prepare everything from scratch because they don't have a nanny, to take care of the kids while they're cooking everything from scratch. They're working 2 or 3 jobs. They don't have money to buy healthier foods. The healthier food doesn't even exist in their neighborhood. So obesity doesn't disprove hunger. It is actually often another symptom of it.
But also the conservatives, and you've followed that down to the old Southern conservatives.
Yes.
Part of the problem with it is that there's race involved in this also, isn't there? People don't understand that more people on welfare are white and not of color.
You're absolutely right.
And I guess it gets exacerbated as we have more and more immigrant population coming in.
Yes,
of color.
I am very loath to use the term racist.
Yeah.
But for Southern segregationists who got up on the floor of the House of the Representatives in the Senate and said, black people are inferior because of their skin color, I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're racist. And they repeatedly said we can't have anti-hunger programs because those people won't work. And I would not too subtly suggest that Newt Gingrich and Rick Santorum and the like raising race in the context of food programs today has a very long lineage. And there's no question that one of the reasons America never developed the social safety net like Europe is because of the false belief that the people getting help are not like us. They're non-white. When, as you pointed out, the majority of people throughout American history who are poor, who are on welfare when welfare still existed, who get food stamps, were and are white. Ironically, as Europe is becoming more diverse, they are actually moving away from the social safety net because it is an unfortunate human trait that you're less likely to help people who are different than you. I think that's a crime, but that's the reality.
You have a map in your book, and it shows, I mean, it's so interesting. The South, Texas and Mississippi and stuff like that, are really the centers of poor, hungry people.
They have the most poverty and hunger, but it's also important to keep in mind that every state in the Union has a very serious hunger problem. The least hungry states in the United States, places like Vermont and North Dakota,
still
have much, much more hunger than the hungriest part of Canada. And so we need to understand this is truly a national problem. The South's in worse shape, but there's a growing problem in the suburbs. I grew up in Rockland County, about 25 miles north of here. There were very few feeding charities when I was growing up. The poverty rate over the last few decades has doubled. There are now more soup kitchens and food pantries in Rockland County than New York City.
And it's hand in hand also with the cost of living. I mean, the cost of an apartment or the cost of a home. People are going to move further and further away so they can afford it.
Yeah, you know, neoliberals love focusing on financial education for poor people, and that's great, and we support it.
But we need everything.
If you're paying $1,500 a month in rent, and you're getting $1,400 a month in wages,
you're in trouble.
You can get all the financial education in the world, but you're going to be poor and hungry.
Now, what is this administration in Washington doing for this?
The Obama administration started strong. Their stimulus bill included a 20% increase in funding for this, for the food stamps program as part of the stimulus bill. That really staved off mass starvation and created jobs. But they and the congressional Democrats got cold feet. They started supporting cuts to these programs as a way of sort of assuaging the Republicans. I think that's bad policy and is going to increase hunger, but I also think, honestly, it's dumb politics. If Democrats believe that food stamps and the stimulus bill were an important way to create jobs, by turning around 2 years later and cutting the same programs, they're telling the American people, oh, we didn't believe what we did to begin with. They should stick by their guns, help people eat, but also fight for the economic policies so people can work.
The same way they're doing with the women's agenda, because they know that's a very good political technique or a political handle to get votes. They should be doing it with this, but they think the poor people don't vote, right?
They think the poor people that don't vote, and they think that somehow any discussion of poverty whatsoever is going to turn off middle-class voters. We have one exception. I'm really proud to be in a state where our junior senator, Senator Gillibrand, has really taken on this hunger issue. It's a very tough political battle, but she went against even colleagues in her own party to offer an amendment that would take money out of corporate welfare for insurance companies that provide crop insurance and spend that money to ensure food stamps aren't cut.
Now, are people, there's so much to talk about, but is the federal government, do you think the fact that these programs are hidden in the Department of Agriculture or they're dispersed, that makes it less powerful in the public?
I actually think that the fact that these programs are in the Department of Agriculture is the only thing that saved them.
Oh, all right.
Had food stamps been at the Department of Health and Human Services and perceived even more by the conservatives as a welfare program, it'd probably be gone already. The only fact it still exists is that farmers and agribusinesses get some of the cut.
But the farmers, I mean, you get the farm subsidy. It's all political. It all comes down to politics.
You know, there's the Heritage Foundation and the Cato Institute, far right-wing think tanks in Washington, D.C. I don't agree with them on squat, except the fact that they oppose most of the farm subsidies. So progressives oppose them because they're corporate welfare. Conservatives oppose them because they're intervention in the free market. Moderates oppose them because they waste money and increase the deficit. And 90% of the editorials of the last decade have opposed the way they're designing.
So why do we still have it?
Money. Corporate agribusinesses have given $500 million to federal candidates over the last decade. If you put the American political system on trial for legal graft and the broken nature of our entire system, Exhibit A, witness number one, would be the farm system. Conservatives, liberals, moderates hate them, and they still exist because of the money.
So do you publish the names, I mean the contributions? Do we not have, it's somehow that never reaches the same point that defense does or other things.
They are in my book,
yeah.
and the Environmental Working Group
Right.
points out who gets farm subsidies.
Right.
You know, David Rockefeller is a very generous philanthropist. He supported a lot of things in this city, but honestly, I don't think my tax dollars and the tax dollars for low-income working families should pay for farm subsidies for his land. A few thousand people on the island of Manhattan get farm subsidies, wealthy people, for land many of them probably have never even seen.
They don't even know they have it.
It's
yeah.
in their investment portfolio. It really is obscene.
Yeah. So you think that we can change the policy, but it's a very political kind of thing. We have to go after candidates, elected officials. We have to do more in the community to build up support, but also there are things that can be done in the community.
Yes, and people need to understand it's not hopeless. By the late 1970s, we almost entirely ended hunger in America because media attention and a grassroots social movement forced our political system to create the modern nutrition safety net and forced minimum wages to keep up with costs. We can do it again, but as Frederick Douglass said, there is no progress without struggle. Power never concedes itself willingly. It never has and never will. We need to mobilize the 49 million Americans and 1.5 million New York City residents who are hungry and food insecure themselves. And we have to help the middle class understand this isn't just about poor people. This affects you too. This could happen to you. You're spending a lot of money on failing education, on a failing healthcare system, on non-productive workers because they are hungry and malnourished. Ending hunger is good for our economy. It's good for the middle class as well as good for millions and tens of millions of hungry Americans.
And then it has such a, I shouldn't talk after that because that was a wonderful end to our conversation, but we still have 30 seconds. You also then produce healthier people.
Yes.
In the future, I mean, it's just incredible to me.
Don't mourn, organize. Go to www.nycca.org, nyccah.org, to learn how you can fight back.
And that stands for?
New York City Coalition Against Hunger.
Thank you very much, Joel, for coming.
Thank you.
And lots of good luck because the future it really must change.
It must.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If there are any people you'd like to hear and topics you'd like us to explore, please let me know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.